about 3 years ago. It was built in 1909 as the first home of Sinai Temple, which is a conservative congregation, the second largest conservative congregation in the world, currently it has, like 2,000 plus families. It was built by immigrants who came from Russia. In 1894, the rabbi from this congregation came with a vision, a beautiful vision, to take American values and Jewish values and marry them, to take the immigrant dream and to bring it to the Pico Union, which was a precursor of Beverly Hills. This was where all of the wealthy people, the Figueroas lived and the Alvarados lived, all the wealthy Mexican land barons. They lived in this area. They built beautiful, beautiful homes. And he built this place, and it was so successful that 20 years later, not even 20 years later, they outgrew this place, and it was sold to the Welsh Presbyterian Church. And the Welsh Presbyterians loved this building so much that they didn't take down any of the stained glass windows with the Star of David. And they didn't take out this plaster of Paris and put in a cross or any other Christian icons. They thought that this was not just a building, but a holy place, and they wanted to protect it. And I am going to say one more thing about the Pico Union that somebody just sent me that I think really is the essence of this space. Give me a second, please, and then I will introduce the balance of the program and the real reason why you came. This is from a guy who, he just said, I need to send you and share with you some of my feedback on services that we had here. And he said, this was great, and that was great, and this was amazing, and this is amazing. And then he said, but Craig, you are amazing in all. But I found the true soul of the Pico Union Project, and his name is George. It's such a blessing to have a caretaker who truly embodies the name. After Rosh Hashanah, that's the Jewish High Holy Day services, I thanked him profusely for hosting us, and he insisted, no, I'm just the caretaker, as if that were a mere trifle, not the sacred task of upholding heaven and earth as it is. Behind every great synagogue, every great temple, is a great man who loves and tends her facilities. And we are blessed to have you, George, as much as you are blessed to have us. And I didn't mean that to be humorous. I am blessed. And thank you. I had lunch with Varun Suni. He is the head of religious life at USC about 3 months ago. I had just watched one of the last episodes of House of Cards. I said, you Buddhists are really something, man. And I love House of Cards, but what they did in creating this Sam Mandala, I would give my left eye tooth to bring them to the Pico Union. He says, well, I just might have a way of doing that. I'm in touch with, well, I said, no, I'm serious. He said, I'm serious. And I said, can we coordinate it around the high holidays? Because we're home to the Women's Mosque of America here. And we're home to the largest Latino ministry in the world, Victory Outreach. And we're home to a plant from First AME Church, an African American church. And we're home to a Korean church. And we're going to open up a Jewish synagogue here. And we don't have Buddhist representation. And he said, I have the group. To me, this was just a piece of art. I had read about Tibet, but this was art. I had read about Buddhism, but that was just faith. This was art. I love art. I love faith. I'm going to bring faith, a different faith community here. I'm going to bring more art here. If you look around, this is an artful space. And then I read about the Tibetan challenges. how in 1969, 59 to 61, there were 6,500 Tibetan monasteries. And with the communist takeover, all but I believe 8 of them were destroyed. That's more synagogues that are in the world that were destroyed in one little country. Behind every great piece of art is a great story. And the Jewish people know more than most that if you don't tell your story, it goes away. We're told that when our people began the great exodus of humanity, when they left Egypt, they were pushed out of Egypt. They were forced out of Egypt. And they didn't want to go. They were scared to go. They would rather live as slaves. They didn't want to go. But finally, they got up the koach, the energy to go, and they escaped and they left. And we're told in their great story, the Passover Haggadah, which basically means the great story, the great Exodus, that in every generation you must see yourself as if you personally left Egypt, because you too were once a slave. And if you cannot empathize with that, then you are not alive, then the story is dead. You too left Egypt. And in every generation, you might not be trapped, you might not be a slave, but all around you are people who are struggling, people who want a better life. And if you can't take their narrative and make it part of your narrative, then you are less human, you are less alive, you are less present, and you are less blessed. And so, we bring this piece of art here, but more than that, we bring the creators of this incredible art piece here, because behind their art is a great story. And it is up to us, as long as we're alive, to embrace their story and to say never again will anybody be a slave, and will we stand idly by while other people are being hurt. So I introduce you, and I please welcome him and his incredible team with great joy, Rinpoche, who is the master storyteller.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Craig, for a very eloquent description of the Tibetan issue and about the monks. Just to give a little bit of background, in my case, I was born in India and raised in India, and until I came to America last year, I've never kind of stepped out or visited out of India. So my generation pretty much illustrates the plight of the Tibetans and how the presentation of this earth is so key to the survival of that culture and that identity. On the, what's that called? Rosh Hashanah? Right? Rosh Hashanah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, so on the night of Rosh Hashanah, I kind of briefly talked about how the fate of the Jewish diaspora and the Tibetan diaspora right now seems to have a lot of similarities, right? And my parents, they belong to the generation, they came from Tibet. My dad came to India as a monk. My mother, I guess she was too young to become a nun, so yeah, she was an infant, and they met in India, and they got married, and that's how I was born. So I was kind of second generation Tibetan. And so as it was the case with the Jewish diaspora, to keep how much of a challenge and a struggle it was to keep their faith, identity, tradition alive without home their own, the Tibetan diaspora in India or overseas, we face the same challenge of to maintain and to keep our identity and culture alive. So So the survival of that culture, not only the Tibetans have to work for that, but we also need a support from the international community. And that's why the presentation of the mandala is so important part of the effort to keep that identity and culture alive. So, like when I was a part of the tour for 10 months last year, and I'm a part of this ongoing tour. So many of the places that we visit, these are museums and universities and those. And in those institutions, we come across the people we can kind of kindle or kind of activate their interest in the Tibetan culture and Tibetan way of life through the mandala. Yeah, when they see the mandala, even they leave aside the philosophical part of it, just the artistic part alone is so intricate and kind of colorful and so vivid. So they are naturally kind of drawn towards that. And when that interest is kind of kindled, then obviously it will open up a lot of questions. And then we can make that connection. And